What if I told you that the most dangerous player in women's tennis right now is someone most casual fans still cannot name, and that the man who just handed her the keys to the entire sport did it without a single press conference, without a single tweet, without even a whisper that something seismic had just shifted? Novak Djokovic, 24-time Grand Slam champion, one of the most calculated minds this sport has ever produced, quietly wrote a $500,000 check, and the name on the other end of that deal is a 20-year-old girl from the Philippines named Alex, and the WTA has absolutely no idea what is about to hit them. Now before you scroll past this thinking you already know this story, stop, because you don't. This is not just about a tennis player climbing a ranking. This is about a structural power shift happening right now inside a sport that is deeply unprepared for it, and once you understand what Djokovic actually built around this woman, you will never look at Alex the same way again. So stay with me because this gets wild. Let's go back to 2018. Picture a 13-year-old girl stepping off a plane in Mallorca, Spain, carrying a racket, a dream, and a work ethic that would eventually make seasoned professionals deeply uncomfortable. She came from Quezon City in the Philippines, a country that in 50 years of professional women's tennis had never produced a single WTA top 100 player. Not one. Not ever. And yet here she was, walking through the gates of the Rafa Nadal Academy, the most prestigious private tennis institution on the planet, and everyone who knew nothing about her assumed she was there to find her footing. They were wrong. She was not there to learn the basics. She had already handled that part. She was there to absorb something else entirely, the tactical architecture, the physical standards, the mental frameworks built by the same institution that shaped Rafael Nadal himself. And she absorbed all of it quietly, patiently, like someone who already knew the world would eventually have no choice but to pay attention. By 15, she had won the Australian Open Junior Doubles. A year later, her name was on the Roland Garros Junior Trophy. And then in 2022, she did something that had genuinely never happened before in the recorded sports history of her country. She won the US Open Junior Singles Championship. 3 Grand Slam titles before she was old enough to vote. 3 historic milestones that sent the Philippine national press into a frenzy usually reserved for boxing legends. And yet professional tennis remained closed. Main draws were distant. Rankings required grinding through qualifying rounds and ITF circuits at tournaments that meant everything to her and nothing to casual audiences watching from home. She ground through every single one of them. Guadalajara, Madrid, Victoria, guess. Each result invisible to outsiders but building something real, something that anyone actually watching could see was not going to stay quiet forever. And then came March 2025. Miami Open. A wildcard invitation to a WTA 1000 event, the second biggest category below Grand Slams, and she arrived ranked 140th in the world. Let that sit for a second. 140th. The draw looked like a death sentence. And then she won her first match. And then the second. And then she stood across the net from Iga Swiatek, a 4-time Grand Slam champion, the most dominant force in women's tennis, and she beat her. Back to back to back. 3 top 10 scalps in the span of days. Sports journalists scrambled for historical comparisons and came back empty-handed. Coco Gauff went on record thanking Alex for bringing a completely fresh demographic into the sport. The WTA's own social channels exploded. Overnight, she was not a prospect anymore. She was a phenomenon. And by the end of 2025, she was sitting at world number 50 after beginning that same year at 143. Her own Instagram post that December said everything. My dreams have come true. Everything this season is a love letter to my family, my friends, my team, and of course to little Alex. But here is the part nobody was talking about inside all those celebrations, and it is the part that matters most. She did all of that while being fundamentally underfunded compared to every single player she defeated. No national federation pumping millions into her daily preparation. No corporate machine covering elite travel logistics. Just a coach, an assistant, raw talent, and a level of willpower that most people will never fully understand. And that invisible ceiling was always going to become the thing that stopped her, unless someone with real vision and real resources decided to step in. Which brings us to Djokovic. and to why this is so much bigger than it looks. By early 2026, Alex had already rewritten every Filipino tennis record worth mentioning. World number 40 after Abu Dhabi. World number 31 after Dubai, where she defeated Jasmine Paolini, the reigning French Open champion, in a performance that left the tennis world genuinely speechless. And then on March 16, 2026, she reached world number 29, the highest ranking any Filipino had ever achieved in the entire history of the WTA Tour. She was climbing faster than almost any player outside the top 20. Her prize money for a season barely 3 months old was already approaching $400,000. 6 consecutive quarterfinals or better across 11 months. The Tennis Channel was running out of adjectives. But behind closed doors, a very different conversation was happening. Because elite tennis infrastructure, the kind that carries Aryna Sabalenka, Iga Swiatek, and Coco Gauff through 40-plus weeks of brutal global competition, costs serious money. A traveling primary coach. A data analyst who does nothing except break down opponents. A physiotherapist available at every single tournament. A strength and conditioning specialist whose one job is keeping one athlete in peak physical condition week after week. Mental performance coaching. Nutritional management. Logistics across 6 continents. When you add it all together, sustaining a genuine top 10 infrastructure costs between $400,000 and $700,000 every single year. Alex's prize money and her sponsorships covered portions of that gap, but the gap was real, structural, and quietly threatening to become the ceiling that stopped her development before she ever reached her actual potential. Djokovic saw that gap. And here is what you need to understand about Djokovic. His net worth sits at approximately $450 million. He already co-manages a private equity fund focused on sports innovation and health technology. His foundation has poured €15 million into Serbian education, built 74 preschools, partnered with the World Bank, and shaped early childhood development policy across emerging nations. He spoke at the United Nations on behalf of global athletes. His motto, "Believe in their dreams," is not marketing language. It is the single philosophical thread running through every significant decision he has made with his money and influence for 15 years straight. So when Djokovic looked at Alex and saw an extraordinary talent from a developing tennis nation, trained at an institution he deeply understands and respects, facing a structural disadvantage that had nothing to do with her ability and everything to do with where she was born, the decision was not sentimental. It was logical. The $500,000 investment reportedly flows through a private sports development arrangement built specifically to upgrade Alex's coaching infrastructure without disrupting her existing relationship with her coach Joan Bosch or the broader Nadal Academy network. And that matters enormously, because Bosch is not simply a competent coach who happened to connect with a talented player. He is one of the most sophisticated tactical minds operating anywhere in professional tennis right now. He competed on tour during the 90s, spent years helping construct the mental and tactical framework of Carlos Moya when Moya was performing at the absolute peak of global competition, and then became a senior coach at the Rafa Nadal Academy, where his philosophy runs directly through Nadal's own competitive DNA. Relentless physical preparation, tactical discipline, emotional resilience that treats adversity as raw material rather than as an obstacle. Bosch himself said after Miami 2025 that the breakthrough speed surprised even him. He always believed she could crack the top 100, but the pace at which everything happened went beyond anything he had anticipated. Now imagine what happens when you take that coaching foundation and layer on top of it a full-time data analyst dedicated exclusively to opponent scouting, an elite physical preparation specialist, and deeply enhanced tactical breakdown sessions before every major tournament. The machinery that the top 5 players treat as standard operating procedure, now fully available to a 20-year-old from Quezon City for the very first time in her career. Do you understand what that changes? Before Dubai this year, Alex defeated Jasmine Paolini using a forehand attack strategy that appeared almost perfectly calibrated to Paolini's known defensive vulnerabilities on the backhand side. That was not luck. That was preparation meeting talent at a level Alex had never previously been able to access. And that level of preparation is now deeper, richer, and more sophisticated than anything she has worked with before. Which is precisely why the WTA establishment is uncomfortable. And they are uncomfortable. You can feel it in the scheduling decisions, in the wildcard politics, in the broadcast allocation choices, in the carefully measured language tournament officials use when her name surfaces in press briefings. On the surface, the tour celebrates her. Her fan base is fiercely passionate, digitally mobilized, and overwhelmingly Filipino, representing one of the most commercially valuable audience segments in modern sports. The Philippines has a population of 115 million people, and tennis viewership there was effectively negligible before Alex arrived and changed the entire equation overnight. Broadcasting partners across Southeast Asia reported viewing spikes that tournament directors described privately as extraordinary. The WTA helped establish the Philippine Women's Open in Manila in January 2026, celebrated publicly as a progressive development for Asian tennis, which it genuinely is, but which also conveniently keeps a high-profile story within a controlled commercial format slightly beneath the main WTA 500 and 1000 tier. Because here is the dynamic nobody discusses openly. Until very recently, Alex's financial backing was modest compared to the players she consistently defeated. And modest preparation resources, regardless of how brilliant the talent, create a real and exploitable gap at the highest level of any sport on earth. Djokovic just closed that gap permanently. Coco Gauff's public acknowledgement in Dubai was warm and genuine, but it also reflected something spreading quietly through the upper tier of the draw. This competitor is not going to plateau conveniently. She is not a feel-good story with a comfortable ending point. She is a structural shift, arriving at the exact moment the WTA's Asian market ambitions are at their most commercially sensitive, and she is now arriving at every tournament with the same depth of support as players ranked 20 spots above her. The last institutional advantage anyone held over her is gone. So can this actually push Alex into the top 10? Look at the numbers honestly. 143 at the start of 2025. 29 by March 2026. 6 consecutive deep runs. Wins over Grand Slam champions while operating with one hand essentially tied behind her back. The hand is now completely free. And for every child across Southeast Asia watching her climb, for every kid in Quezon City picking up a racket and wondering whether someone who looks like them can reach the absolute summit of a sport dominated by European and American programs for half a century, Alex is already the answer to that question. Djokovic understands this. He has watched the commercial center of gravity in tennis shift eastward throughout his entire career. He knows the sport's next authentic global superstars will emerge from non-traditional nations. And he knows, with the particular clarity of someone who spent years navigating his own establishment battles before the sport fully accepted his greatness, exactly what structural support means to a developing champion. The $500,000 is not charity. It is a calculated, values-aligned, strategically sophisticated investment in the future direction of the entire sport. The machine is running. The rankings are moving. And what is coming is something women's tennis has genuinely never seen before.